And so then story number 4, new data on the antibody treatments. One from Eli Lilly, that's a cocktail of 2 antibodies. They had previously, I think, had data for one for a single antibody. With 2 antibodies, they reduced the risk of hospitalizations or deaths by 70% compared to placebo. There were 10 deaths in the placebo group and none in the group that got the cocktail. So all the reduction was, all the people who had an event in the cocktail group were hospitalizations. There's a lot of issues with this treatment. It needs to be given early to be effective, but they want to save it for only the people who are most likely to get really sick. And so it's hard to tell really early whether somebody's going to get really sick. And then it requires a really high dose, which has limited the manufacturing capacity to make the number of doses. They are studying a lower dose, which at least in pharmacokinetic data, which is basically just looking at the amount of antibody in the bloodstream, they seem to be able to get sufficient levels with a lower dose. So now they're testing the lower dose for efficacy. And then it also takes a 60-minute infusion time. And so you're talking about people with COVID-19 that have to be infused. Normally, you think of pictures of cancer wards where people are getting infused, and there's a whole bunch of chairs sitting around, and everybody's talking to their people that they've come with, and obviously none of that's happening. Everybody's going to be gowned up and separated, and so that's really difficult to have a 60-minute infusion of somebody who's already tested positive for COVID-19. The company's looking to cut that down to 16 minutes, which might help a little bit, but it's still a big issue for getting everybody gowned up and the worry of the people that are administering the drug.
Yeah, those are some real limitations for Eli Lilly's antibody therapy here. That long period of infusion, and as you said, it has to be given so early. And they're limiting it to the high-risk patients. And so I think it remains to be seen what the real impact of Lilly's antibody therapy will be. Now, it is a cocktail. One of those therapies is already on the market under emergency use authorization. The other one isn't. But so, the cocktail is promising, but I think it's going to be important for Lilly to get that infusion time down.
Yeah. They're also testing a cocktail with one of their antibodies with VERS antibody. The VERS working with GlaxoSmithKline, but VERS was the one that discovered the antibody. That VERS antibody binds to an area that's identical between the original coronavirus that caused SARS and the coronavirus that causes COVID-19. And so that's the fact that they're identical means that probably if you get a mutation in there, that lowers the efficacy of the virus or makes it so it can't infect the cells at all. And so hopefully that means that antibody binding to that area would be active against any variant that might show up, because any variants in that region might not be active.
Yeah, Brian, don't you think we're at that stage where we'll see more of this type of thing, where one company's therapy, they conduct studies in combination with another company's therapy? I think we're at that point in the lifespan of some of these development efforts that we'll see more of this going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, and I think we've even seen some companies teaming up on manufacturing too. And so I think, that solving the problem as a group is definitely the way to go. And I think companies are more willing to do that, especially companies that are late in development and don't have any other options to get in on the take.
Right.
And then Regeneron Pharmaceuticals also has a COVID-19 antibody, or the coronavirus antibody cocktailed 2 antibodies. They had data last week as a prophylaxis to prevent people with COVID-19 who have been exposed because somebody else in their household had it. They had 100% prevention of symptomatic infections. There were 8 in the placebo group out of 223, and none in the group that got the cocktail out of 186. There were so that was symptomatic infections. There were some asymptomatic infections for the people who got the antibody, but there was a decrease in the amount of virus that they were shedding, and how long they shedded the virus for. So it seems to be working fairly well as a prophylaxis, and I could see this as a better option than treatments. Although it sort of becomes useless once we have enough of vaccine to cover everybody.
Yeah, and I think Regeneron was even referring to this as passive vaccination. You know, it's not a vaccine, but if you take it after being exposed, it can kind of works, not work in a similar way, but it has some of the same effects as a vaccine because it does prevent infection. I think the great thing about Regeneron's antibody cocktail is that it doesn't require infusion. This is just an injection, subcutaneous injection. So I think that's a big plus, and probably will open up more market potential. But as you say, though, Brian, I think as the number of COVID vaccines increase and become more widely available, it could diminish the need for some of these other therapies and prophylaxis like this.